Hey everybody, this is Chris coming to you live from the library on behalf of Cinephellas, the only website for all your cinephilic needs. And yes, I do have a co-host this week. Thank you so much for asking. This is Logan 6. Now, Logan 6 is known for his top hats and his goggles. It's just this thing, so don't judge him. Say hey, Logan.
Hello.
It was his idea that we try something a little different this week. Instead of the regular reviews, we're going to start a new series where we dive into a classic film and discuss its relevance today. On behalf of Logan,
Hello.
I've chosen to take another look at Logan's Run. After all, it is the film that gives him his name.
Where's popcorn?
What? I thought you were making the popcorn. I can't be responsible for everything. The film was directed by Michael Anderson and adapted for the screen by David Zelag Goodman. It's based on the novel by William F. Nolan and George Clayton Thompson. It stars Michael York, Jenny Agutter, Richard Jordan, Roscoe Lee Brown, Farrah Fawcett in her pre-Charlie's Angels days, and Peter Ustinov. It hit box offices in 1976. More on that later.
Ooh.
Logan's Run won one Oscar for visual effects, but was nominated for 2. It really scored, though, at the Saturn Awards, where it took home 6, including Best Science Fiction Film. It's also notable for being one of the first to use laser effects. The story is set in the year 2274 in this very utopic seeming community, which is sealed under a geodesic dome. The population and consumption of resources are controlled by an all-powerful computer. Citizens are allowed to live freely until they turn 30 years old, and at that time, they have to participate in a ritual called carousel to be renewed. The life clock implanted on their palms begins to blink when their lives are almost up. The few citizens that refuse to accept the ritual and flee are called runners. Logan 4, played by Michael York, and his partner Francis 7, played by Richard Jordan, are an elite police crew called Sandmen. Their job is to track down and kill these runners. Logan is great at his job. He has a great reputation around the society, and he has absolutely no interest at this point in questioning what he's been taught to believe about life in the utopian society or the carousel ritual. But that all changes when he discovers an ankh on one of his victims. Now, an ankh is an ancient Egyptian symbol of life. The almighty computer tells Logan that the ankh is used to help runners find a mythical place called Sanctuary where they can live out the rest of their lives in peace. The computer orders Logan to find and destroy Sanctuary. At that moment, Logan's life clock suddenly advances 4 years, taking him dangerously close to 30. To avoid partaking in the carousel ritual and to save his own life, Logan becomes a runner himself. His only hope is to stay alive and find Sanctuary. Jessica 6, played by Jenny Agutter, also wears an ankh. She becomes Logan's partner on this crazy epic search for the promised land that takes them outside the dome and into a world that they never imagined existed.
What?
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I know. Yeah. Okay. So just some historical... I'm getting there, okay? I'm getting there. So just some historical context, background if you will. As I said before, the film comes out in 1976. 1975 is the official end of American involvement in Vietnam. 1974 is when President Richard Nixon resigns thanks to the Watergate scandal. Say hello, Dick. Hello, Dick. And from 1973 to 1975, that was the period when the United States was going through a severe recession, which effectively ended the post-World War II economic boom that had been effectively going on since about 1945. Distrust of the American political system, economic depression, and uncertainty as to where the nation was headed really, pervaded in the country and showed themselves in this film. And I want to point to one scene in particular that illustrates these sort of dark feelings of the mid-1970s. So Logan and Jessica find an abandoned city on their travel to Sanctuary. It's completely new to them, but we as the audience recognize it as the ruins of Washington, D.C., the capital of the United States. In the rubble they find presidential portraits, the Washington Monument, an almost irrecognizable Lincoln Memorial, and a decaying Senate chamber. In that chamber they find an old man, which completely shocks them because, once again, they've never seen a human being live over 30 years old. The old man living in the Senate chamber has several cats, and when he speaks to Jessica and Logan, he quotes T.S. Eliot's Book of Practical Cats. Now, it's not specified in the film, but if you listen closely, you can get those quotes. T.S. Eliot's Book of Poems was originally published from his personal letters to his grandchildren. They were taken directly from the letters and put together as a book, which came out in 1939. In the book, each of the cats performs a practical function and has an individual name. They're not just these sort of curious characters that we have to adorn our lives as pets. Without each of these cats playing their significant part, the entire social structure crumbles. And I personally find it really interesting that the old man quotes from Eliot's poems while physically in the ruined Senate chamber that's overrun by cats. Doing so hints that the humans meant to run the United States have failed to perform their vital functions for national survival, but it also leaves some room for minor rays of hope in the wreckage of the national capital. At two separate times, Logan and Jessica come across Abraham Lincoln. Once it's in a portrait, sort of discarded in the corner, and then once, before they even get to the Senate chamber, it's at the Lincoln Memorial. Two references mean we should pay attention. And it's to the president that's credited with holding the Union together during a time when, after the Civil War, it was in question of whether the Union would ever progress as one. So there's a hope here by referencing the Great Uniter that somehow maybe Logan can bring his society back together and expose the truth to them. What makes this film really timely for us, and I believe timeless in many ways, is that it expresses three very important philosophical questions that are relevant to the human experience at any point in life, whether it's 1976, 2016, or 3016. First, would you want to know in advance when you were going to die? I mean, this is a really good question. One, yes, you might be able to prepare more for it, but at the same time, personally, I would feel great anxiety trying to deal with this burden, this kind of looming darkness that was upon me. I wouldn't want to know when I was going to die, and I think it would be quite destructive. Now we have to think in terms of the society that Logan is living in. They have no reference for age until they meet the old man, so it's not new to them. They kind of just accept the fact that at 30 years old, your life is expired.
Are you serious, bro?
Yeah, it's terrible, right? The second important philosophical question that the film asks is, what does it really mean to achieve freedom? Now, there is physical freedom represented in the film and also psychological freedom. And that takes the form of knowledge. So just because Jessica and Logan are physically without the confines of the dome, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're free. It's not until they achieve a certain amount of knowledge about life that they truly start to feel like they have some liberation. And the third most important question in many ways is exploring this tension between social preservation or individual life. Which one is more important and why? I mean, this is again a very tense question. It animates our political system in many ways, and especially in 2016, we have issues like transgender bathrooms and how, should the federal government regulate those issues, or should the state governments be able to regulate those issues? And this tension is something that goes back all the way to the founding of the country, and there are traces of it all over the Constitution, in Thomas Jefferson's writing, and in, the civil rights era is another time when we have this great tension between the state and the federal. And again, in more recent history, we can think of the bailout that happened a few years ago, when the federal government decided to give money to individual states to rebuild after the recession. So oddly, we can kind of see, there are some parallels between 1976, when this film came out, and 2016, that are not only addressing the human experience at large, but, our country, albeit hasn't changed very much.
Why you gotta be so pretentious, bro?
God, this guy. This guy's always critiquing me. Shh, you're crazy. Concerns over the meaning of life, locating freedom, and understanding a citizen's relationship to her or his society sit at the core of what it means to be human in our culture. I give Logan's Run 4 out of 5 hair pieces. Yes, this is real hair, okay? Baldy, calm down. Elements of government distrust, economic insecurity, and weariness of a long drawn-out war make this film as relevant in 2016 as it was in 1976. Plus, the movie's title sort of sounds like a voyeuristic workout video where you just watch a dude named Logan run a few miles. So if you can fool yourself into thinking that it's exercise, then we all win, don't we?
Yeah!
Once you see the film, let me know your thoughts in the comments. I would love to hear from you, but please, constructive comments only. Until next time, I'm Chris. This is Logan.
Hello!
For Cinephellas, reminding you to share a movie with someone you love. See you next time. Alright, okay. So yeah, it's not the coolest sign-off in the world, but it's better than just sitting, isn't it?